And they certainly are. Hello, my name is Alexander. It is May 17th, and that is the due date of our first child, Rhea Loren, and she has decided to not show up to her due date, unfortunately. No, she's still here. Everything's fine. She's just not here yet. She takes after her father. If something's due on a particular day or something needs to be done, do it last minute. At least that was the old way of Alex doing things. I'm trying to get to the page on my phone because I do like to see the words being written. It's, I think, a nice bridge way to do this. I am getting comfortable with this activity, and so we are going to have it dictated while I do this. So I just, on my phone, I have the Google, wait, hold on. Period. Okay, now it's doing it. So now as I talk, it's writing the words with me. And then I also have this Notion page on my computer screen that you can't see. This is a computer screen right here. It's where the webcam is. And this page is open so that I can see the words that I'm saying. I come from I was going to say a background, like I have fucking experience, really, but I've done free writing the last 2 years, where you just write whatever comes to mind. And doing that has done an incredible job of kind of removing what Julia Cameron in the Artist's Ways book helps remove your kind of internal censor. For those that like creativity or want to do artistic things, one of the biggest blockers in that is your own internal censor. The one that says that you're no good, the self-doubt, the self-critic, the one, and it can get you. It really can. And I noticed that yesterday when I was done recording. I did a similar exercise to what I'm doing now of just speaking and seeing whatever the hell comes up. And afterwards, I was like, okay, I did all right. And typically, it'd be at that point that I'd be pissed at myself. Or not necessarily pissed, but like I would be stressed out. I would feel like I didn't do good. I could have done better. Like, oh, what am I doing? Like, just all this doubt and negativity at the end of a session when speaking. But yesterday I was like, nah, because I started reading this book and I learned that there is a censor, and she says that whenever those kind of thoughts or emotions come up, to label it as your censor. And you can also give it a name. Actually, I think it said in here that's one person, or she says multiple people have given the name of their censor to the parent responsible for the censor's installation in his or her psyche. And that's what they call it. So I'm going to take that approach because I do believe that a lot of my self-criticism was likely installed, or at least heavily influenced, by my father. So my censor's name is David, and I don't have to look too far to find that name, and it is my middle name, Alexander David. So that's the one we're rolling with, and I think this kind of is a twofold for me. It not only helps me get out of my own way, monitoring my internal critic, and then responding to that critic with just love and acceptance. And I know that sounds cheesy, but if you do things like this, if you're a person that has never recorded, we all listen to people talk on here, but it ain't that easy. Or if you like to write or whatever it is that you like to do, it's so easy to beat yourself up and put yourself down. And some people are more critical than others, and I think I fall into the category of more critical. So doing this, kind of labeling it, and just showing it love and just letting it know it's there helps me not only get over this critic when I do this speaking, but also helps me kind of heal from the wounds of my father. I haven't spoken to him in going on 6 years. And before that, there's some tumultuous periods of just anxiety, and he just makes you stressed out. And rocky patches with him, like in my early 20s, there was a period where we didn't speak to each other for a couple months. And then there was the time when in college, when I wasn't going to school, I was dicking around smoking pot. My mom found out, and my parents are divorced, so my mom secretly told my father, who lived in a different state, like, hey, Alex isn't going to school. When he comes to visit you, pretty much confront him about it. And they had a little plan that they devised that he was going to call me out of my shit when I was there at his double-wide trailer in Petal, Mississippi. And that I was going to live with him. I remember he was wanting me to, like, show him my grades on that visit. And this was, like, of course, when I was failing everything. I wasn't going to school anymore. Like, I was enrolled in the classes, but I wasn't going. And he was like, what's the password? Like, he was wanting to log into my stuff. And I'm like, and I was trying to, like, give him the wrong password. And then it eventually got to the point when he kept trying different passwords, the bullshit passwords I was giving him. He's like, all right. And he gets up from the computer. He goes and sits me on the couch. And I'm like, oh my God, does he know? Then he just said something like, I have failed you. And it was just so deeply disappointing, and just, I don't know. I felt more of a failure than I already did. But, yeah. And then before that time in college, it was growing up, always afraid, always scared of him. He's always being critical of us, saying we could have done things better. He'd get mad at a drop of a hat, and you were always on your best behavior to try to not piss him off. And then when he did get pissed off and you didn't think you did anything wrong, you were racking your brain. What did I do? What could I possibly have done? And here we are, age of 33, and through this practice of free speaking is what I call it, what I'm doing right now, recording myself, and then, reading this book, learning about your censor. I honestly think that I'm, in a way, kind of healing a part of me. And whether I talk to that man again in my life or not, I think I'm doing valuable work. And I will say that yesterday afternoon, after recording and going about my day, I felt good. A lot of times I have this residual feeling of just, like, I could have done better this morning. Because I also, have obsessive tendencies. Was diagnosed with OCD. I don't like to say that I'm diagnosed with OCD too much, because I don't want it to be a part of my identity. I don't want to be like, oh, yeah, I have OCD, and it's just the way I am. I mean, it kind of is, because I still check things every night. I check the faucet, make sure it's off. Not the faucet. I used to do that. I check the back door and the front door and the stove. And making sure those things are off. And to someone who doesn't have it, it's hard to explain, but you just have this deep inkling to just check things out, and you don't really know why. That's beside the point. The point is that, after recording, you just have this obsessive feeling of this thing in the back of your mind. It's like, I could have done better. That sucked. And it's that obsessiveness. And then you're self-critical on it. But yesterday I didn't have that. I knew that it was the censor after recording. I'm like, I'm not going to let this shit bother me. And I didn't. And I felt deeply liberated for the first time in a couple years of having started, kind of messing around with creativity, doing writing and different things. And it was probably the first time I felt that way, especially when recording myself. It's one thing to, type in your little on your computers by yourself. It doesn't feel like as much pressure. Not to mention I've done writing much longer, but it was just a good feeling yesterday. It really was. It felt like progress, and I'm going to keep going through this. She discusses how every person has a creative side, not just people that are naturally artistic by any means, and that doing what are called free pages, where you just write 2 to 3 pages in the morning, can really help you just get kind of the gunk out of your head, like all these thoughts that we have about our day. We just get it out onto a page. We just get it out. We let this kind of stream of consciousness, whatever we want to write. Like, we don't have to want to write anything. We just write things. I don't know what to write. I'm not a good writer. This is stupid. I feel awkward. Now my hand is hurting. I have to take a dump. Am I almost done? That's what you can do. But it's funny, when you do that, you unlock things that you didn't know were in there. And it's like you get some of these most creative or insightful ideas through that process. So if anything, regardless of whether you want to be an artist or not, I think there is value in doing this writing exercise in the morning and now. Everyone and their grandmother these days is telling you what to do. I mean, who's not has an idea of, okay, in the morning, take 3 glasses of water with salt, not too early, make sure you get sun first, then do your cold bath, followed by meditation, then you must exercise for 24 minutes, not 25, and then you go do some cardio after that, followed by stretching, then do 6 prayers, and take 4 good shits. And once you do that, then you can start your day. It's exhausting. It really is. And I exhaust myself. I really do. And I think it's part of the inner critic. And in this new age of self-improvement and everyone wanting to be a creator, myself included. Now, I will hypocritically say that I started doing writing because of the mental health practice that I desperately needed. I needed help 6 years ago when I tore my esophagus, and I was obsessed with heartburn and worrying about my body. And that's another little ailment of Alex's health anxiety, which is night and day better. Night and day better. I would say it's dormant most of the time. But that's only because of the meditation and the YouTube videos and all the writing, taking notes on the different practices and techniques to get over anxiety and how to cope with OCD and those sorts of things. That's what started this whole train, if that's what you want to call it, of wanting to be creative. That is until the ego gets a hold of it and tells you that you must be successful at it, that this is your calling, that this is what you always were meant to do, and then it turns into some bar, something that's in the future that hasn't come yet, that will then make you happy only once you get there. And so once again, it's something for which you're reaching all the time, something just out of reach that you can't grab. And that's how it's felt ever since I was little, going to the first grade to second to third to fourth, fifth, sixth. You got to do good in school. You need to get to middle school. Seventh, eighth, you got to get to high school. You got 4 years of that. High school, then I wanted to be on the basketball team. When I didn't make it, and I had something to reach to. I got to get good at basketball. I got to get to the next grade. There's always something. Always something. And then now, here we are still, trying to beat out this inner critic. Now, there's different philosophers who will say that we have something called the will, and that is the idea that we always kind of have to be working on or doing something. We have just a will to keep going, to do, to discover, to create. And it's almost like our minds need something to sink their teeth into. And if we don't have that, then we feel lost. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you only go from one thing to the next, thinking that one of those things that you're working on is going to make you more whole or more fulfilled than you are right now, then you too are lost. And it's this balancing act, this, what is it called, a teeter-totter, seesaw, of having purpose, having things to do to kind of give this will of the human mind and body something to chew on, but yet not do it so much, obsess about it, and thinking that one of those things is ever going to make you fully satisfied. And that's tough. It's a balancing act. And we see examples of so many people on all kind of, what do you call it, aspects of the spectrum here. You got the go-getters you see on Instagram and social media, hustle, grind. It's 4:30 a.m. Let's start our day. Let's keep going. Don't quit. Let's make this bread. And then you got people who, on the other end, feel lost, feel lazy, don't feel that great, don't feel that good about themselves, think they're stupid, and don't think that they can amount to anything. And that's a dangerous place too. Depression and anxiety can breed from there. Drug addiction, alcohol, bad habits. And so, in Buddhism, one of my favorite spiritualities to study, the idea of the middle way. The middle way, and that is exactly what it sounds like. Balancing, trying to do not too much, not go too hard at any one thing, but also not being a hermit in a cave either. Having a balanced life. Having goals, but not making them everything. Work out and exercise, but you don't necessarily have to be a bodybuilder, and thinking that your serratus and latissimus dorsi muscle isn't as far down as Arnold obsessively thought when he looked like a Greek statue. So it's hard. It's hard to identify this right balance, and it's something that you must continually experiment with, continually play with, and you will rock the teeter-totter. You'll rock the boat either side. And every time you do, you kind of feel yourself hopefully going in that direction. You're like, okay, I'm starting to obsess. I'm starting to do too much. Okay, rock the boat back. Okay, now I'm kind of getting lazy. No, I need to start doing a little more. And it's just a balancing act. So we really just got to get better at balancing, I guess you could say. But on another note, I really like this idea of not turning the speaking into a performance. You know, I oscillate quite frequently with the different ways to record these videos. It's not something that comes easy to me. I overanalyze to death. And like I said yesterday, I felt so liberated because I didn't feel like I had to perform. One of the last videos I did, I wrote something out. I wrote a little piece that came out of free writing. That was free writing where you just write whatever comes to your head, and I just started writing on it. And something came out. And then I wanted to perform it. And I was thinking like I got to be like Dave Chappelle with his timing of the way he uses his words and how he pauses. He'll let something land, and then he'll speed back up. And just all those little nuances that make him such a great user of oral tradition. You know, an amazing storyteller that he is. And it's like, I'm not there. You know, not even remotely close to that man. In trying to imitate, in trying to make it so that my writing comes across eloquently, that's a performance. That's not just authenticity and letting the mind explore and have its own little playground, which is what I'm doing now. And it's honestly what feels the best. When you just let your mind go to different places, and you see what you come up with. And that's what I've enjoyed about free writing for years now. And for whatever reason, it's been so difficult to do speaking. I think part of it is you're being recorded. There's an implication that people can see this. I'm hearing myself, so I'm getting immediate feedback in my ear. And then there's less time to process. Because with words, you have time to kind of just sit there relaxed. Think about what you want to say next. And there's no pressure. But with this, if you kind of just sit there and it's kind of thinking, you're thinking about what you're going to say next, that silence is deafening. That inner critic comes up quickly and bigly, as the old Donald Trump would say. I wonder how that boy's doing. Whew. But yeah, this is a liberating way to do things, and it feels free. It feels like I'm not having to do something. When you make it a performance, when you're making a video, like I need to make a video, it needs to have 2 to 3 points, and it needs to go over this, and this. And okay, let me develop the points first. Let me write them out. Ooh, that's a good thing to say. And you spontaneously come up with these good ideas. And then when you record them back, you're like, okay, I got to say this good. Okay, and then I said this and this, and you're saying the part that was what was eloquent in your head when you wrote it down 5 minutes ago. And then in the back of your mind's like, that didn't feel as good as when I first wrote it down. It's a performance. The critique comes in. And that's just something with where I'm currently at in my own life. And my own little self-critic in my head that I simply can't handle. I can't handle it. It bothers me. It bothers me. And there's just something about freely letting loose, letting it rip, freeballing it. That makes this just so much more enjoyable. And after all, this is a hobby. And I think I've let the mind tell me, my ego tell me that this must be something that becomes big, that becomes a success. And anything less than that is not worth doing, or it's kind of like the whip in the back of your mind. Whoopsh, you're not good enough. Whoopsh, you got to get better. Whoopsh, look at all these people with successful podcasts and you're still working a full-time job. Whoopsh. And it's a miserable way to live. It's not fun. And it's not fun to record that way. And I will say I am relatively impressed with myself for now going for 25 minutes and kind of holding the tune. It may not necessarily be good to listen to by any means, but I'm holding the tune and I'm keeping the beat going and I'm not letting that inner critic come up. It's part of it. You just keep going. If you keep going, you don't give that inner critic a chance to beat you down. Like even right now, if I don't know what to say, you just keep saying something. Because if you stop and go, I don't know what to say next. Oh, this is no good. Then that's the inner critic coming back up. You just keep blurting shit out. Keep blurting. Keep blurting. Just like, I'm not going to say that name. Like certain people who don't know when to shut up. It's nothing bad. It was just someone that I know who, hates silence. And people that I know who are watching will know. They'll know. You'll know. We all know. But yeah, it is 11:25 a.m. And I feel good. I do. Feels good to feel good, man. That's another thing that oscillates your emotions. Yesterday morning, phew, boy howdy. I worked out, had a fantastic workout. I've been doing only one workout a week, and while that sounds crazy, it's Mike Mentzer, look him up, but he basically says that work out less, that you need more time to recover, and I just do one full body workout, and I do one set to failure per body part. I don't do multiple sets, just do one to failure. His idea is that if you're doing one to failure and you can't do another rep, what's the benefit of doing a second set? Like if you've gone to failure, your body has been stimulated maximally and that it cannot do another one. And so you've switched on the switch for growth. And then that's it. Move on to the next. So far it's been working. I've been getting stronger. Yeah, and I do it in an hour and it feels great. Like you're excited to come back to it. Where was I going with that? No, I was just saying about my workout and I let it take me for a ride. Yeah, and then after that, yes, emotions. Emotions. They oscillate. After my workout, I sat on the back porch and yesterday was a day before our due date. And man, it was tough. You just sit there worrying in anticipation, like it could happen at any minute. It could happen at any minute. And you start to feel anxiety, and then I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to get worried about this. Let this anxiety go away. I don't want to start obsessing about this. Oh, for the love of Christ. Why do we have to do this right now? I just had a good workout. Let's just enjoy this Saturday. And then all this anticipation builds. And then I get up and I get antsy and I want to, go talk to Jen about it. But at the same time, I don't want to make her worry. And that's part of it. That's life. But the point is that after that, I just got up, made my smoothie, took me and Jen. We went out we went driving, and we just kept moving. We just kept doing stuff. The anxiety sat with me a bit. But what's funny is that after we went out, we went all over. We went to Sewanee. We went to Alpharetta. We went to Duluth. We went to a bunch of places. And it got to the point where we were just tired. We're like, all right, let's go back home. Like, we went out to kind of keep ourselves busy because we were stir crazy and with anticipation, as you could imagine. But then it just we got so tired. We're just like, all right, I don't give a shit. Let's just go home. So we did. We went home after being out all day. And for whatever reason, I just felt great. Maybe it was a part of me not worrying about the inner critic and just being able to record. It was part of just being out with Jennifer. And we were just having fun, being silly and laughing, listening to music like we always do. And then I thought that night, and then that night we went back. We were watching TV, and I don't know. I just felt at peace. And it's just crazy how even within a day, your entire perception can oscillate so much. I mean, you can be your emotional. It's an emotional roller coaster. It can be. You know, you're stressed and anxious about something one minute. You direct your attention towards something else entirely. And then the next minute, you're happy-go-lucky. Next minute meaning a couple hours for me in that moment, but I think you get the idea. But that's another thing, too, is to not let emotions rule you. What I mean by that is you are not the emotion that you are experiencing. And it's hard to not do that. We get caught up in our emotions and we think that the reality is the way that we are currently feeling. But that is not so. And it takes a mentally strong person with a keen sense of awareness to know the difference between a high or a low and seeing that for what it is and knowing it's a high in the moment of being high, of happiness, of joy or feeling good, and to also know that's that drop and to know that you're experiencing a low and knowing that neither state is permanent. That's tricky dicky. Sure is. Especially when you're in those lows. And I would argue that a great place to build character, resilience, awareness, and a trust and understanding of impermanence are in those low moments. When you don't know what's going to happen, or maybe something bad did happen and your brain is telling you you need to think about this in every single angle, even though we know underneath that there's not a damn thing we can do about it at that time. And to be able to just sit with that feeling and sit with those thoughts that are attacking you from all angles, like, you know, a castle siege in Lord of the Rings with arrows flying in every direction, and it's truly overwhelming. I think it was, what the hell was his name? One of the kings in the Two Towers movie. The king of, shit, what was his name? Now I gotta look it up. Going on a side note. Hold on, let me share my screen. Who was the king, Two Towers, blonde guy who was possessed? What? You know what I'm talking about? King Theoden. I let myself go on a real tangent here. This guy, when they're in the middle of battle, he was just overcome with what he was seeing, and it was just all too much. And it can feel like that when you're in those moments of shittiness. Because life does have those moments of shittiness and pain. Pain is real and universal to everyone. It loves to make you think that you're alone, that no one else understands you. But that's not true at all. And in that moment of Theoden, Aragorn was like, snap out of it, bro. What can we do to help you? What can we do we got to do this. Keep moving forward. We got this. And sometimes that's all we need is a sense of encouragement or a reminder that whatever low thing you are experiencing not only will pass, but you too will pass through it. That's what you're currently doing. is moving through it, or rather maybe it's moving past you, however you want to look at it. I kind of like that better. It's moving past you because you are strong, holding your pose like a mountain. Things are going around you. You know, you're not moving around for these emotions and things. We can, and we often do, react to them strongly. But if you have an Aragorn, if you have that supporting voice in your head to remind yourself that this is just a low point, that this is impermanent, and this too shall pass, you anchor yourself in the present moment, which is eternal, like a box, like a container, and all the comings and goings are moving right on through. The highs and the lows. And I want to give myself some credit here. I have gone 36 minutes and I have almost completely forgot about this sensor. And this video was, well, it wasn't really a video. This was to serve as a free writing warm-up. That's all this was a warm-up to get my mind active, and I have just since ran with it. I think I had the warm-up in place because I was like, okay, we'll get used to it. We'll get in the zone. We'll get used to our speaking. And then my plan was to have, here, I'll show you my plan. I'll show you my fucking plan. Un momento, bitch. Yeah, look what I said. Like, I'm like, okay, I just did my free writing. What are your thoughts on me doing free speaking? Should I do 10 minutes of just rambling, and then should I have like 2 or 3 different things to talk about? And it said, yeah, that's a good idea. Do 10 minutes of free speaking. That's the ritual. And then to have 2 or 3 things to touch on afterwards. And it's saying, yeah, you should do 2 to 3 different topics, each with their anchor words, which means like you have a topic, let's say self-critic, and then within that you could talk about parenting and how parenting can play a role, a personal example, which I kind of touched on, and an act of self-compassion maybe, and just being more, lenient with yourself, more graceful with yourself, forgiving, more accepting of you know what I'm trying to say. And have those 3 kind of words under the subject of self-critic. And then you just talk about it. And that would be one thing. That's one topic. You have one topic and then 3 or 4 anchor words under that topic. And that was my plan, was to kind of just free speak and then go over 3 things. But here we are. I mean, damn, 40 minutes into it and it feels like absolutely nothing. So I want to, that's what I was going to say. I want to say that I am proud of myself. I really am. You should have seen me a couple years ago. I was actually sitting pretty much right here. And I would turn around and I would face that wall where the Buddha picture is. I would have my whiteboard, one of the whiteboards. I think it was that whiteboard that you see right there. I had it on that wall. And I wrote every single line down of a video I wanted to write. And not only that, I did takes of each line. Like I did 4 to 5 takes per line. I remember recording a 4-minute video for like 2 or 3 hours. And I remember being exhausted afterwards. So I want to give myself credit of how far I've come. And even if, I don't know, it's kind of throwaway work. I don't know. And I'm still being, I guess, hard on myself. But, like, I'm not really saying a whole lot. Yeah, I am being critical of myself now. I was going to say, like, this video isn't saying much. But there's meaning in it. And that meaning resides in not letting the censor win, letting David win, letting the self-critical aspect win, and showing, and it's not against the critic, I'm not against it. It's not a fight. It's showing the critic love, care, and compassion. That it's okay right now. Everything's okay. And to be able to do that and to record for 40 minutes without any particular agenda and not even really looking up a bunch of stuff or having any notes planned and just rambling on a stream of thought the way I have done hundreds of times in free writing, to me is massive growth and acceptance in releasing that inner critic. And I just want to pat myself on the back right there. And I think that is something that a lot of us don't do enough, is give ourselves credit the way we would a youngster, like a little child. And I know that sounds woo-woo, goofy, weird, mushy, uncomfortable, awkward, new age, self-care bullshit. I know it does. Yet at the same time, how often do you get complimented in your life? Like a genuine compliment where someone thanks you sincerely. How good does that feel? As adults, we don't really get the praise that I think every human deserves. That level of compassion and care. And that feeling of you're just enough, making you feel like you belong and that you're worth something, you know? And while we definitely should be the change we want to see in the world and remind ourselves to give that to others, to let people know when they're doing good things and to let them feel that moment that we so yearn for ourselves. And we do that for those, but we can also just do it for ourselves too. And it's a hard thing to do. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to pat your own self on the back. It feels lame, stupid. I ain't gonna do that. I'm an adult kind of attitude. But if you don't believe that, look at the science. The science of self-compassion is clear. Yeah. Who would have thunk it? That love, not just towards other people, but towards yourself. Genuine love, not self-care in the sense of get a glass of wine and put your feet up and get a massage. That's just a nice Saturday. This is forgiving yourself for mistakes, for looking at where you've come in the growth that you've had. And it doesn't have to be major growth or comparing it to someone you see on Instagram and showing their growth. You know how they'll show a picture of them, 120 pounds, skinny dude with acne, and then now he's a ripped, shredded guy with 6 houses and, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't have to be the benchmark for which you're allowed to feel any kind of love for yourself. Yeah. Social media, man. That shit is a doozy. It's almost created a new hierarchical system for people. In tribal days, you know, when were we in tribes? You know, like in tribal days where we were, I guess, once in tribes, and we were in groups to hunt and survive and gather and bang each other to keep the species going. And within that, I think there was like systems of people do this, people do that. And I was just wondering how, like, today people look at a person's page and it almost seems like you stack them up by just quickly glancing at their profile. You know what I mean? Like, if you see a friend, you click their page. You know, that's my boy. He's got like 300 followers. Cool. And and then there's a different person that you know, you're an acquaintance, or maybe you are a friend, but they're actually kind of popular on social media. Maybe they look really good. I don't know, whatever the case is. And they got 10,000 followers. In the back of your mind, it's like, oh, wow. Wow. And there's like this unconscious kind of tribal mentality of that, I don't know, they're further along. And then, like, if they, let's say they blew up and got 1 million followers, now it's like, wow, did you see Johnny's like famous now. And then if you saw Johnny, you'd be like, bro, Johnny. You know what I mean? And so there's like this a mental tribal leveling up that we're almost unconscious about. I'm curious. Let me go back to this tribal shit. When was the last years, or when did we live in like tribes of groups of people? When did that take place? For the vast majority of human history. The transition was like 12,000 years ago. Didn't happen overnight. Deep past 95% of the history of anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, everyone lived in small nomadic bands. Oh yeah, when the agricultural revolution around 10,000 BC, people started to gather more because like, yo, we got all the food is here. So then you could support larger groups of people. It's fucking interesting. I'm just going to say my thought to it and we'll see what it says back. So during these tribal days, were there like almost a hierarchical or caste system within a particular tribe? Like there was a maybe head honcho or maybe lowest person on the totem pole, so to speak? I bet there was. Depends heavily on the size of the group. Interesting. When we look at early human history, there's a massive difference between a small hunter-gatherer band and a larger tribal society or chiefdom. Remarkably egalitarian groups. Rigorous social hierarchies and caste systems only really started locking into place as societies grew larger and settled down. Really, in groups of 50 to 100 people, there was no permanent head honcho, no caste system. That's interesting. Fluid leadership. It wasn't official office or birthright. The group needed to hunt. The best hunter led. It was just everyone took turns. That's awesome. Yeah. So pretty much the more social structure and the larger the groups is when totem poles started taking place. That's interesting. It required two things to have a rigid caste system, and that is agriculture and stored wealth. Huh. So when you had groups of people, that was the farming, you had to have a big source of food for there to be large groups to be there. And then secondly, stored wealth. Now, what do they mean by wealth could be hoarded and passed down? Yeah. On the Pacific Northwest, indigenous totem poles, the figure at the very bottom is often the most important or foundational figure. Oh, that's interesting, because it supports the weight of the entire pole. The English idiom completely flipped the meaning. Yeah. I was going to say, we think of totem pole, you being at the highest, but actually, in this example, the totem pole with like the most important figure was at the bottom. Makes total sense to me. So I was thinking of this idea of how there almost seems to be like caste systems more in place now through social media, period. Through digital content, it's almost like you see a person's page and your brain immediately does a evaluation on them. You see how many likes they get, what they look like, how many followers they have, and from that instant reaction of a digital page, you feel as if maybe that person is more worthy than you or less worthy or significant than you. But the idea is that social media really taps into these primal caveman-like ecosystems. Would you agree to this, and is there any truth to this? Not ego. Ego. Let's see what this bad boy says, and then we'll wrap this up. We're getting close to an hour. You hit the nail on the head. Boom! There's an immense amount of truth to this, and evolutionary psychologists, anthropologists, and neuroscientists agree with your premise. What you're describing is a textbook case of evolutionary mismatch, a scenario where a brain designed for ancient small-scale environment is suddenly placed in a hyper-modern digital landscape. Social media didn't invent these comparison loops. It just hijacked a survival mechanism that has been running in our biology for hundreds of thousands of years. Here's exactly how social media exploits our caveman ecosystems. Prestige tracking. Humans have two ways of climbing the social ladder: dominance and prestige, earning respect through skill, wisdom, or value to the tribe. In ancestral times, you had to know exactly where you stood in the prestige hierarchy of your small tribe. It's interesting how it's saying now, like, you wanted to know where you stood, but then earlier it said nobody was a leader. So, which is it? If you were high status, you got the best cuts of meats. Okay, well, maybe there was a bit of status then. If you're low status, you were at risk of being ostracized, which was literal death sentence. Your brain evolved a hypersensitive, lightning-fast status detector to evaluate others and protect your own positioning. So it's all about survival. And survival, my friends, is always rooted in fear. When you look at a social media profile, your brain treats that page exactly like a new member walking into the tribal camp. For 99% of human history, your status detector only had to evaluate 100 or 150 people in your immediate group. You might have been the best storyteller, the second fastest runner, or most reliable tracker in your valley. That kept the ego stable. Social media took that local radar and blew it up globally. And the wild prestige was abstract, head nods, shared food, respect. Now it's an explicit numerical score broadcasted right at the top of a profile. Oof. The glitch in the system isn't the digital page isn't real. It's a highly manufactured, curated highlight reel. Your brain is running an ancient, high-stakes survival program using totally distorted artificial data. That's enough of that. Another reason why I don't like social media. Yeah. I'll say I'm very susceptible to that stuff. To be quite honest. It's hard for me to even go on Snapchat and look at those stories and see people traveling, going to places at any time they want, or having a lot of money. My brain, my ego is like, it longs for, it's like, I know I don't need it. I don't want it. It's not going to make me happy for long. I know that conceptually, but that caveman part of my brain doesn't give a shit. It still is doing its thing. And it's just a hard wire that we've been given. And there's a balance, back to the balance of learning to work with your caveman brain hardware and also navigating modern times. And it's a balancing act. But I think that's enough for today. 54 minutes. Great job, dude. Killed it. All right, y'all. That is it. Thank you all. See you next time.